up everyone, hope we're all doing well. Do you remember a time when a certain middleweight was steaming through the division and everyone was talking about him? He had so much excitement, so much hype, he was an undefeated prospect, and nowadays no one really talks about him. I do. His name was Paulo Costa. And just before we start looking at his resume and wondering what went wrong, I just want to let everyone know I absolutely love Paulo Costa. I think he's one of the funniest fighters on the entire UFC roster. So if I'm being a bit harsh at times, I'm not doing that out of spite and hate. I'm doing it out of pure love for the Brazilian boy because, again, I just absolutely love Paulo Costa and hope that he can turn things around soon. And now that I've mentioned that, let's get into his resume. Now, to start things off, we have to go all the way back 13 years where Paulo Costa made his MMA debut and got a win via TKO. It just says here, it doesn't give us much information, it just says win, win, win. But it does say here TKO, TKO, TKO. So his first 3 wins in MMA were all by TKO. And then he gets on to the Dana, whatever, not the Contender Series, the Ultimate Fighter, sorry about that. He gets on to the Ultimate Fighter, wins his first one by submission, and then loses a decision. After this, he goes on to win another TKO, another TKO, another TKO, another TKO, another TKO, and every one of his wins so far have came by finish, and he's still undefeated because yes, it wouldn't go on your resume, well, your record, sorry, when you took an L or a win on the Ultimate Fighter. So he was undefeated technically. I know he lost on the Ultimate Fighter, but again, didn't go on your record. Then he gets into the UFC, gets a first round finish again on the feet against Gareth McClellan. Sorry if I butchered your name, mate. Then he fights Olawale shut up. He gets another finish is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, alright, yeah. And then to end off 2017, now this is where I first saw Paulo Costa, and I think many people would have seen Paulo Costa, as this was when he was on the stacked card that was UFC 217, which, you know, had like 3 title fights. You had Bisping taking on a returning GSP at middleweight. You had Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw, which had a crazy, backstory going into it, a crazy little rivalry. And you also had Rose Namajunas taking on Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And it was a stacked card. I believe it was a New York card as well. A very stacked card. And this is where everyone started talking about Paulo Costa because, again, it was a stacked pay-per-view and so many people were watching this card, and he battered Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks, a notable name. He was off the sauce at this point and was shit. He was in the middleweight division, wasn't really doing anything, really. He was a sacrificial lamb, let's be honest. Johnny Hendricks should not have been in the octagon against up-and-coming Paulo Costa, who was undefeated, built like a brick shithouse and was just finishing everyone. But Costa did what Costa had to do and just blitzed through Johnny Hendricks like it was nothing and demolished him. And that's when I first watched Paulo Costa. I was like, okay, he's got my interest, and I think that's when it happened for everyone. Then he took on Uriah Hall, and he did get the finish in this one, but he actually did struggle a fair bit against Uriah Hall. Now, I don't know if it was actually classed as a knockdown, but I remember Uriah Hall dropping Costa, maybe momentarily. It wasn't exactly like a clean knockdown or anything, but he was doing really well against Paulo Costa with the jab, but it didn't matter. Costa was able to get him out of there in the second round. Uriah Hall, a UFC veteran, a well-established name, another good name to have on Costa's resume. Maybe it was at the end of his career, but regardless, still a good name to have on your resume. And then he gets to fight against Yoel Romero, the fight that everyone kind of remembers Costa for, the big one, which could have gone either way, really, but it went Costa's way. Now, this was an absolute back and forth. This was a banger for 3 rounds. This was like King Kong versus Godzilla. It absolutely delivered. Both dropped each other within like the first minute of the first round. It was just back and forth, brilliant. And this gave him a lot of hype, actually. I know a lot of people thought that Yoel Romero won this, but because of how good the fight was, a lot of people were big on Paulo Costa, and obviously Adesanya was doing his thing on a different lane, and everyone was talking about Adesanya versus Paulo Costa, and we did get that, and obviously we all know the result. Adesanya was able to dismantle Paulo Costa, and arguably one of Adesanya's best performances, in my opinion. Chewed up his leg, and then got the finish in the second round with the counter. It was beautiful to watch. Now, going into this fight, a lot of people believe that Paulo Costa was going to win. You know, people viewed Costa as this big puncher and all that, and I never believed that. He was more throwing combinations and accumulating punches. Yes, he can hit hard, but he didn't exactly have like knockout power. If you go through it all, none of these are straight up KOs. They're all TKOs because he would just break you down. He would mix it in, head, body, push the pace against you, and be constantly on the front foot. He tried that against Adesanya, who knew how to fight against a pressure fighter, and he just didn't work out. He was very confident in the first round. Once that second round came across and he had already been picked off for an entire round, you could see the confidence had left him a bit, and he wasn't as confident as he was from that first round. So he took a loss against Adesanya, and I think that knocked just so much confidence out of Paulo Costa. Like I say, he was undefeated, get all of his wins coming by a finish apart from the Yoel Romero fight, but that was a barn burner. And then he come across Adesanya, and just like that, his undefeated record's gone. The fight didn't go the way he thought it would. He got absolutely dominated. He probably thought, you know, I feel like if this was somewhat of a close fight, it would still have had maybe a bit more confidence, but it was kind of in the mud. So then we don't see him for another year. He had a few cancelled fights against Whittaker, Cannonier, and he gets to fight against Marvin Vettori. Vettori, I think, had just lost to Adesanya that year. And I was expecting Paulo Costa to win. It was a close fight, and to be honest, it was an absolute fucking banger. I'm not going to lie to you, but he lost against Marvin Vettori. He came in overweight as well. This is where the classic meme comes from. I'm going to show on the screen. This is where the classic meme comes from. He's like, Vettori's fuming at him for missing weight, and Costa's just like, that's your own personal problem. Like, what the fuck? He is so funny. But yeah, he lost to Marvin Vettori. Vettori just okay, but it was a brilliant fight. I'd love to see a rematch between those two, if I'm being honest. Has a cancelled battle against Luke Rockhold, but then he gets to fight against Luke Rockhold. Can't finish Rockhold, which is really weird. It was at Elevation. This was the card where Leon sparked out Usman, and all the fights on this card, really, all of the fighters were gassing out. So it wasn't just Costa, but it was wasn't a terrible fight. It wasn't my cup of tea. It was very sloppy and sluggish, but it was maybe to like someone who's new to MMA, they would love this fight, but he was still able to beat Rockhold. Rockhold landed like a big shot at one point. That's about it, but Costa just kind of walked him down, and it was okay. He got another win, and that's the last win that we've seen from Paulo Costa, which is a shame to think about. Got a cancelled fight against Ikram Aliskerov, which I think would have been a decent fight, and I actually think he would have won that. Had a cancelled fight against Chimaev. I think Chimaev would have beat him, but at the time I thought Costa would have caused some problems stylistically, but after seeing what Chimaev's done to Whittaker, I don't believe it anymore. Had a banger against Robert Whittaker, where he could have finished Whittaker, but he landed this wheel kick, which really hurt Whittaker at the end of round one. And yeah, it just happened too late into the round where he couldn't really get anything else off on Whittaker because the bow just went to signal that he didn't need to go to their corners. And then he lost to Whittaker, but that was an absolute banger of a fight. And having a close fight against Whittaker is not really a bad thing. They both took a bit of damage, and Whittaker was, you know, is well known, is a very good fighter, one of the best middleweights of all time. So he had a very close fight against Whittaker, but then a few months later, he tried to be a bit more active, came back a few months later against Sean Strickland, and just looked shit, really. That was all down to Strickland, how good Strickland was, but it was a boring fight, so I blame Strickland for making a Paulo Costa fight boring. But no, Strickland did what he had to do. Paulo Costa just, I don't know how it was split. That was very stupid. It was a very one-sided victory for jab fest for Sean Strickland, and ever since we've seen nothing from Paulo Costa. So the last time we saw Paulo Costa was in the summer of last year, and he looked like dog shit against Sean Strickland. And now it's the start of 2025, and we don't really hear of any fight news regarding Paulo Costa. I think he still does his typical meme stuff on Twitter. Again, he's really funny on Twitter. If you don't follow him, you're probably best off following him because he's genuinely one of the funniest fighters on the entire roster. The build to that Adesanya fight was crazy. You got his whole secret juice thing. He's a very entertaining fighter in the octagon, outside the octagon, and it just feels like a massive shame and a waste. But he went from this big prospect, undefeated prospect, to now someone who doesn't really have any confidence, doesn't have any aura. Like, imagine Paulo Costa's rise when people keep on saying aura. Everyone would have been saying aura, aura, aura for Paulo Costa. You know what I mean? Paulo Aura Costa. That's what his name would have been. So it's just a shame, really, to see where he's ended up. Who would I like to see him fight? Well, he's ranked 11th in the rankings. I think what would be great if he fought Reina Dorida. I think that would be a fantastic fight. See how Paulo Costa gets on, because he does have decent grappling, to be fair to him. He just gets outbested when it comes to a better striker, in my opinion, but he does have decent grappling. I'd actually like to see him utilize his grappling more in fights, but I think a fight between him and Reina Dorida would be great. You know, kind of defend your ranking a bit. If Reina Dorida beats you, maybe he takes number 11 or even higher in the rankings. Who knows? Maybe a fight against like someone like Jack Hermanson, Roman Dolidze, but they seem a bit more boring, although they are winnable fights for Costa, in my opinion. Maybe even the loser or winner of Jared Cannonier and Gregory Rodriguez, however you want to do that. So there is options out there. I wanted to rematch with him and Marvin Vettori because they're just kind of in like this weird position in the middleweight division, but Vettori's just signed a fight against, oh yeah, Roman Dolidze in a rematch that everyone was asking for. But anyways, yeah, Paulo Costa, Reina Dorida, that is the fight I would love to see next for Paulo Costa. I just want to see him back to winning ways. And I don't think Paulo Costa's ever going to be in the top 5 again. I don't think he'll be competing for a title ever again. And it's a massive shame. But I just want him to at least be one of those fighters who can pick up some wins here and there. You know what I mean? I believe he does have a great skill set. I think stylistically he can be a nightmare for people. But he just seems inconsistent. I call Kevin Holland Mr. Inconsistent. Costa's also in that kind of bracket as well, and I hope to see him break out of that bracket and start becoming more active again. It looked like he was trying to do that in 2024, but he took 2 back-to-back losses against 2 top 5 middleweights, in all fairness. But I'd love to see him back in there against someone who he's maybe a bit more favorable against. I feel like going against Whittaker and Strickland, no one really fancies his chances, but going up against someone, you know, maybe just outside the top 10, I would favor his chances a bit more. I still believe there is a bit more of a tank of Paulo Costa. But what do you guys think? That's all I've got to say about Paulo Costa. But let me know in the comments what you think about Paulo Costa, what you think he should do next, and what you thought about his rise in the UFC. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.